Israel and Iran are at war. Over the weekend, there has been an exchange of attacks between Israel and Iran, with Israel striking some of Iran's most sensitive nuclear facilities as the Iran nuclear deal fell apart in 2018 when Trump withdrew us from it, and nothing was made in its place, which has led to the situation that we are now seeing play out. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly why there's a through line that goes directly to Donald Trump being at fault here for the situation currently at hand. But before we look at all that, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So back in 2018, Trump withdrew the United States from a internationally agreed deal that kept Iran from developing or seeking to develop a nuclear weapon. And while the deal was not necessarily seen as perfect by everybody across the aisle, to say the least, it was something that was keeping Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, which very, very much so is a direct threat to Israel and Jews at large. And we saw Trump withdraw. He called it a one-sided deal, and nothing was entered in its wake. Joe Biden was not able to muster the political will to get another deal done. And by the time Biden even could have done anything about it, the situation was already devolving to where any sort of negotiated deal was less and less likely by the time Biden even took office. Before even Biden took office, a deal was much, much less likely to happen than if Trump had done something about it in his first term. And I haven't seen much people in the media really point this out or make this point that this all goes back to Trump. I mean, it just does. I'm going to show you this article here from Responsible Statecraft, and I went and looked at this the media fact check bias because I wasn't sure. I haven't seen this website before, and we got mostly factual, left center. So not just a lefty website here or anything like that. And what they said in this article was killing the Iran nuclear deal was one of Trump's biggest failures. 6 years after the U.S. withdrew from the JCPOA, prospects for its resurrection are dim, and Tehran is closer than ever to a bomb. This is from May 8th, 2024. I'm just going to read this first little part here. It says, 6 years after Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, the disastrous consequences of this decision are still adding up. In addition to Iran being closer than ever to nuclear weapon capability, now we must consider how the declining security situation in the Middle East has raised the stakes significantly. Trump promised a better deal, but instead we got an increasingly costly blunder that may be impossible to fix. Does that sound familiar at all? Unfortunately, it does. To fully understand the enormity of Trump's decision to leave the Iran deal, consider this. When the US and Iran were complying with the deal, it was estimated that it would take Iran about 1 year to produce enough fissile material, in this case weapons-grade uranium, for a nuclear bomb, known as the breakout time. The states negotiating with Iran, the United States, Russia, China, Great Britain, France, and Germany, assessed that this would be enough time to respond to possible violations and prevent Iran from producing a bomb. Even if Iran were to acquire sufficient fissile material, it could still take another year for Iran to make a deliverable nuclear weapon. As of May 2018, the deal was working and considered by most to be a great success. Then Trump unilaterally left the deal, calling it a horrible one-sided deal that should have never ever been made. And now we are in a much worse place. Iran says it has no intent to produce nuclear weapons. and U.S. intelligence sees no current efforts by Tehran to weaponize, yet Tehran is believed to be not 1 year, but just weeks from being able to produce enough fissile material for a bomb if it chooses to do so. At the same time, the ability of international inspectors to detect violations in a timely manner has eroded. As one U.S. official said of Iran, they are dancing right up to the edge. Worse still, relations between the United States and Iran have been so damaged by Trump's withdrawal that it does not appear as though the deal can be resurrected. Any efforts to stabilize the U.S.-Iran relationship have been severely complicated by the recent exchange of direct attacks between Israel and Iran. And this is from May 4th, 2024. Just as we need a non-military approach more than ever, the prospects for a diplomatic situation appear distant. What's worse is that increasing tensions may be pushing Tehran closer to a political decision to go nuclear. The dangers of an Iranian bomb and the related risk that that Israel could attack Iran's nuclear sites could lead to wider military conflict in the region. Of course, it did not have to be this way. The deal was working until Trump abandoned it, and if he had not, it could still be working today. So it seems here that, we've heard this saying time and time again, you cannot let perfect be the enemy of good. And a deal was in place with Iran, albeit not a perfect deal, but it was a deal that was, for all intents and purposes, deterring Iran from continuing to research and develop a nuclear weapon. And we've heard Trump make this sort of do this strategy of break it first and we'll come up with something later that's better. Don't worry. We're all going to be fine. I mean, we've heard that with repeal and replace Obamacare, where they basically wanted to, they got the repeal part down. They got that down, that they want to take it away. The whole replace was never quite ironed out in the same way that the repeal was. And it was so bad that Trump ended up basically sticking with Obamacare, and they never even really got rid of it fully because there was no replace. And what do we hear about the tariffs, right? When Trump introduced these unilateral tariffs on the entire world and said, we're going to have 90 deals in 90 days. Don't you worry. We're going to get this ironed out. And right now, I believe we're sitting at approximately 0 deals in however many days. Maybe like a half a deal. I know that there's this deal that's been kind of sort of announced. This has been a little bit lost in the craziness of the news the last week. That they're lowering the tariffs from 150% or whatever they were, 145% down to just 30%. But what I was pointing out to one of my friends he was saying, well, if Trump gets the deal done with China, the tariffs won't be so high. That's a good thing, right? I was like, yeah, I hope a deal's made to where the tariffs aren't 150%, but I made the point of a 30% tariff on China is not, the vast majority of Americans are not better off with a 30% tariff on China than they were before Donald Trump took office. And this guy asks me, he goes, well, how much was the tariff on China before Trump took office? I was like, it was 0. There was no tariff on imported Chinese goods whatsoever. So, with all the stuff that we import from China, a 30% tariff is still something that is absolutely going to hammer lower income Americans who rely on cheaply made Chinese goods. It's just a matter of fact, right? And is that something, I'm jumping up and down here going, yay, there's lower income Americans that are reliant on cheaply made Chinese goods. Woo, great. No, okay, that's not something that is great, right? But Trump's solution of, well, let's just make sure that those people don't even have any access at all to to purchase those goods. Um, what he's basically saying is, poorer Americans, you guys can just go without, right? Don't who can forget his whole infamous, she's gonna go from having $45 to having $5 argument, telling the poorest Americans in this country who are already struggling in a country that has more wealth than any other country in the whole world, make do with less. A man who has never, ever even worked a single day in his entire life of hard labor, telling you and your family who are scraping by to make do with less while Trump goes ahead and figures out a deal in the meantime, right? We'll figure that out later. Don't worry about it. This is Donald. This is the guy that has a book called The Art of the Deal and built his whole political brand on being this successful businessman, the successful deal maker. I mean, that's all a lie, and very obviously so, given that Trump went bankrupt multiple times. But this strategy of break it first, fix it later is not how you do things on the international stage. And it's not how you lead a country, certainly. It may be how Trump led his businesses, led them all into the ground, I'll say again, and bankrupted them. But it's not how you lead a country. And we're now seeing the disastrous effects of Donald Trump's inability to get something better than what was in place before he blew up the Iran nuclear deal. And now we're in some serious doo-doo, right? Where we have potentially another theater of combat that is spawning in the Middle East. And, let's just hope that it doesn't escalate. God help us all that this conflict does not escalate. And God help us that America is not going to get more involved in this conflict. I just know that it seems that there's a through line of blame that goes straight back to Donald Trump. And anyone going, oh, well, why didn't Biden re-enter it? Why didn't Biden this? Why didn't Biden that? Biden was his negotiating ability with Tehran was severely hampered by Donald Trump's lack of leadership, just as any Democratic president that is elected in 2028 is going to seriously be suffering the consequences of trying to repair our trading relationships and repair our status as leader of the free world. It's not going to be an easy overnight thing to just convince all of our allies, yep, everything's back to normal here. Not going to be easy to do. And Biden did quite a lot with his administration. He did quite a lot with a very divided Congress, and was able to, in fact, get some pretty consequential legislation. The Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, all sorts of infrastructure spending. And that was a result of Joe Biden's leadership and his drive to make the lives of American people better. Drive that our current president certainly does not have. And his deal-making ability is also something that remains highly questionable. That's all I got for you guys in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.